Dave, the state of Missouri says 36,000 people in this state got too much unemployment compensation during the pandemic. Now they ought to pay it back. Governor Parson says they must pay it back. And here's what he said. He says they're taking it away from somebody else. I know it's easy to say it's government money, but the reality is that it needs to go somewhere else that needs it. Certain logic to that. Should they have to pay it back? What do you think?
Well, the problem with his logic is most of these people got the money because of the state's error, not because of fraud or any mistake they made themselves in applying for the assistance. And frankly, a lot of them just don't have the money. I mean, they're unemployed. If they got a check for $1,000 or whatever, they spent it to pay the rent, to pay the utilities, to buy food. It's the federal government, Congress passed a law that said states could waive these repayments if they want to, and Missouri has chosen not to so far. Although there's a bill in the legislature that would give the recipients a chance to kind of wipe the slate clean.
Well, what the state says is, when this pandemic broke out, we were pushing money out the door. You applied, we gave you the money, and we figured we'd check later. And when we checked later, we found out that you didn't really deserve as much as you got. I'm not totally willing to absolve the recipients in this. The state says about 3% of the money was due to fraud. People just lying. But I suspect that a lot of it was just mistakes, people not understanding the system. For instance, I think a lot of it was probably gig work. I lost my main job, but I kept this occasional gig on the side. Right. And the state's way of reporting that is kind of screwy. For instance, for me, this video is gig work. And I'll do it today, but I won't get paid for another month and a half or so. But if I were unemployed, I would have to, in my weekly report to the state, say that I got the money today. And probably didn't do that. So I suspect that it's confusion both on the state's part and to some extent on the recipient's part.
Well, I think so. I think one thing it shows is that Missouri and other states are using pretty antiquated systems to keep track of this stuff. I think it's it's high time that the states invested some money in kind of upgrading their technology infrastructure. So and that would both help them detect fraud and help this sort of unintended overpayment from happening.
Well,
I agree with you. If 3% of the money is fraud, the state should make every effort to go after that money. But this is an extraordinary circumstance. They were trying to push out a lot of checks really fast. This is not sort of your normal period for unemployment. There's just a lot of people with a lot of need.
Yeah. And the truth is that most of them, the vast majority of these people did lose a job. They did lose income. The question is probably not did you deserve no unemployment at all? The question is, did you deserve as much as you got? I don't know. During the height of this, the maximum that you could get from the state here was $320, and most people didn't get the maximum. Right. The real issue is the extra $600 that you got from the federal government. And the feds say, well, if honest mistake, you don't have to pay that federal money back. But the state is saying, yes, you do.
Yeah,
so, I don't know.
Well, that's why I take I take issue with Governor Parsons' characterization there. I mean, this is a federal program. They're taking money from the federal taxpayers. They're not really taking it from other unemployed recipients. That's a stretch to say that they're somehow harming the system or harming other people. I mean, we know. I mean, all of the programs that Congress put in place to address the pandemic, there's going to be some waste and some money going where shouldn't necessarily have gone. I mean, I think in the PPP, the Small Business Loan Program, there are a lot of companies that got the money that didn't really need it. But the imperative was to get the money out fast. So we just had to accept a certain amount of that. I think it's the same with the unemployment system. I like the bill in the legislature to sort of forgive these overpayments. It does need to be carefully crafted so we can still go after cases where there was fraud or misrepresentation.
We know that my understanding of the bill is that the bill, there are many bills, but the one that seems to be headed for passage is that it would forgive the federal part of your overpayment, but not the state part of your overpayment.
Okay.
So I don't know we have a very business-oriented governor,
Right.
And, businesses pay into the unemployment fund. And if the state doesn't get its part back, then it's possible that businesses would have to pay more in. And I suspect that might be what's worrying him.
That is true. If the state unemployment trust fund gets drawn down, then the tax rate that the businesses pay goes up to replenish it. So that there is a legitimate concern there about about keeping the system sound. But as you said, I mean, about 3/4 of the money that going out was the federal portion. So if the recipients had to pay back the state portion, about 25%, and if the state's reasonable about it,
puts them on a payment plan, something like that.
It's probably not nearly as much of a hardship as the bills they've been hit with for literally thousands of dollars.
Well, I'm playing a bit of the meanie here, but I actually do agree with you, and I think they ought to forgive the whole thing if it was an honest mistake, either on the state's part or the recipient's part. So anyway.
Which it is in most cases.